Did you know there's a hidden list? A list of 7 teachings that Jesus made very clear in the Gospels, but that 95% of Christians end up ignoring. I'm not talking about complex doctrines or profound theological interpretations. I'm talking about lessons from Jesus so simple that even a child can understand, so practical that they could transform the world if put into practice. But before I go any further, I need to ask a clear question. Are you ready to be challenged? Because some of these teachings of Jesus will shake everything you believed about being a Christian. What's more, at the end, I'll reveal which of these 7 teachings is the most threatening to human pride, the one Jesus highlighted as essential, but which provokes the greatest resistance among Christians. But before I begin, I need to ask a direct question. Are you prepared to be challenged? Because some of these teachings of Jesus will contradict everything you believed about what it means to be a Christian, and there's more. In the end, I will reveal which of these 7 teachings is the most damaging to the human ego, the one Jesus considered essential, but which generates the most resistance among Christians. So, get ready, because after knowing these 7 teachings, you will never be able to pretend you didn't know what Jesus actually taught. 2 billion Christians on the planet, 2 billion people who claim to follow Jesus Christ, but there is something alarming happening right under our eyes. Most of these followers live exactly the opposite of what Jesus taught. I'm not exaggerating. Let me show you. Jesus said in Matthew 7:21, "Not everyone who calls me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father." Do the will. Don't just declare it. Don't just attend church. Don't just sing hymns. Do it. Herein lies the devastating paradox. Millions know passages about love, yet live filled with hate. They preach forgiveness, but harbor years of resentment. They talk about humility, but are excessively vain. Why? How did we get to this point where knowing Jesus became more important than following his teachings? The answer lies in a truth no one wants to face. It's easier to admire Jesus' teachings than to put them into practice. It's easier to study Christ than to become like him. But today that comes to an end, because you'll learn about the 7 specific teachings Jesus left, and you'll understand why each of them is consistently avoided by contemporary Christians. And when we're done, you'll no longer have the excuse of, "I didn't know." I'll begin with the most radical teaching Jesus ever gave. So radical that most Christians pretend it doesn't exist. Love your enemies, bless those who curse you, do good to those who hate you, and pray for those who attack and persecute you. Matthew 5:44. Stop everything, read it again. Love your enemies. Don't just tolerate them. Don't just forgive them. Love them. Actively desire their well-being. Pray for their happiness. Do good deeds for the people who have wronged you. Let me tell you a true story that illustrates how this should work. In 2006, a man entered a school in a small community and shot 10 girls, killing 5. It was a tragedy that would leave any community torn apart by resentment and a desire for revenge. But this was a Christian community that truly followed the teachings of Jesus. Do you know what they did? Immediately after the shooting, the victim's parents visited the attacker's family, not to confront or blame, but to offer forgiveness and support. They helped pay the shooter's funeral expenses. They comforted his wife. They cared for his orphaned children. That was it. Love your enemy in practice. This is literally following what Jesus taught. Now, be honest. How many Christians do you know who actually do this? How many sincerely love the people who have hurt them? How many pray for the happiness of those who have harmed them? The harsh reality is that most Christians have lists of enemies longer than their prayer lists. They hold grudges as if they were trophies. They rejoice when something bad happens to those who hurt them. Jesus called this hypocrisy, and he said something surprising. If you love only those who love you, what's the difference between you and anyone who isn't a Christian? But there's a second, even more challenging teaching. Peter thought he was being kind when he asked, "Lord, how many times shall my brother sin against me, and I forgive him up to 7 times?" Jesus' answer must have surprised Peter. "I don't say up to 7 times, but up to 70 times 7. Matthew 18:22. 70 times 7 is not 490, it's a number that represents always. Without limits, without conditions. The Christian forgiveness that Jesus taught doesn't depend on the repentance of the offender. The gravity of the offense is linked to the number of times it happened and your willingness to forgive. It's a choice, a decision, a non-negotiable commandment. But here's why this teaching is so ignored. Forgiving 70 times 7 means you can never use the past as a weapon against anyone. You can never hold grudges as fuel for victimization. Churches are full of people who know passages about forgiveness but carry mental lists of all the times they've been hurt. Christian couples who keep a mental record of every argument from the last 10 years. Christian families divided by old offenses that could be healed with honest conversation and true forgiveness. Jesus made this point directly. If you're enjoying these revelations, leave a like to show me that I should keep bringing you this type of content. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Now, the third teaching that few practice. Truly I tell you, unless you turn and become like little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Matthew 18:3. Humble like a child, not false. humility or self-criticism, but the genuine humility of someone who recognizes their total dependence on God. Observe a young child. They don't pretend to know what they don't know. They aren't afraid to ask simple questions. They naturally trust their parents. They don't wear social masks or intellectual pride. This is the humility and faith Jesus demanded of all his followers. But what do we see in churches today? Christians arrogant because of their own biblical knowledge. Leaders who can't stand being challenged. People who have turned faith into a competition over who knows the most, prays the loudest and fasts the longest. Jesus abhorred this religious mindset. In the Sermon on the Mount, the first attitude was, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Matthew 5-3. The poor in spirit are those who recognize their utter spiritual bankruptcy, who know they deserve nothing from God, and who depend entirely on grace. It's the complete opposite of the arrogant Christianity we see today. Genuine humility is transformative because it destroys the need to compete, compare, and impress. It frees you from the prison of religious ego. But true humility always manifests itself in a specific way. But when you give in charity, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your giving may be kept secret. And your Father, who sees what is done in secret, will reward you publicly. Matthew 6:34. Jesus was establishing a revolutionary principle. True faith in action needs no audience. He reiterated this same principle regarding prayer. But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret. Matthew 6:6. And concerning fasting, that your fasting may not be seen by men but by your Father who sees what is done in secret. Matthew 6:18. Did you notice the pattern? Jesus was directly confronting exhibitionist religiosity, stage spirituality, the faith that only manifests itself when there's an audience. But today, we live in an age of Christian influences. Everything needs to be published, shared, and applauded. Prayers only happen publicly. Generosity only exists when someone is filming. Serving in secret means helping someone without anyone knowing, praying for people without them noticing, donating money anonymously, doing good without expecting recognition, living your faith when no one is watching. This is the ultimate test of spiritual authenticity. What do you do when only God is watching? The practical Christian life Jesus taught worked perfectly on Monday mornings in traffic, at home, at work. It didn't need flashing lights or hashtags. And this brings us to an even more challenging teaching. Judge not, that ye be not judged. Matthew 7:1. This is probably the most misinterpreted verse in the Bible. Most people think Jesus was forbidding any kind of discernment or evaluation, but that wasn't the case. Jesus was talking about hypocritical, condemnatory, and uncompassionate judgment. He explained in the following verses, "And why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye, but fail to notice the plank in your own eye?" Matthew 7:3. The rule is simple. Before pointing out others' faults, address your own. Before criticizing, look in the mirror. Before condemning, examine your own heart. But this is precisely the rule that Christians most often disregard. Churches filled with people who know exactly what's wrong with everyone else's life, but are blind to their own flaws. Christians who specialize in pointing out the mistakes of others, but who have never engaged in true self-criticism. Jesus said something devastating. With the same measure you use, it will be measured back to you. Matthew 7:2. The standard you use to judge others will be used to judge you. The severity you show to others' mistakes, God will show to yours. Don't judge. This doesn't mean being naive or accepting everything. It means acting with the same mercy you would like to receive. Correct with love, not with superiority. Restore, not destroy. But there is a sixth teaching that goes directly to the heart of our selfishness. Give to everyone who asks you, and from anyone who takes what is yours, do not demand it back. And Luke 6:30, lend without expecting anything in return. Luke 6:35, Jesus was establishing a principle that completely destroys our consumerist mentality. Radical generosity without expectation of return. I'm not just talking about money. I'm talking about time, attention, resources, energy, knowledge. Jesus taught that his followers should have an attitude of constant giving. But here's why this teaching is so often ignored. It directly attacks our instinct for self-protection, our need to control resources, our tendency to always calculate what will benefit us. Most Christians only help when they are certain it will be appreciated. You know the person is deserving. Are you confident you won't be harmed? You expect some kind of return in the future. Jesus called this a pagan mentality in Luke 6:32-34. He said, "If you love those who love you, what reward do you have? Even sinners love those who love them. If you do good to those who do good to you, what reward do you have? Even sinners do the same." True Christian generosity is unconditional, illogical, and contrary to human logic. It is giving to those who cannot repay, helping those who do not deserve it, lending without guarantees, serving without contracts. And this brings us to the seventh and most challenging teaching of all. If anyone would come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. Matthew 16:24. This is the most dangerous teaching for the human ego. That's why it's the most avoided. Denying yourself doesn't mean being a masochist or having low self-esteem. It means choosing God's will above your own desires. Every day, with every choice, Jesus demonstrated what this means in practice. For whoever wants to keep their life will lose it, but whoever gives their life for my sake will find it. Indeed, Matthew 16:25 is the central paradox of Christianity. You only discover true life when you die to yourself. You only find purpose when you let go of your own agendas. You only achieve happiness when you stop desperately pursuing it. But let's be honest, how many Christians actually live this way? How many truly submit their career choices, relationships, finances, and time to God's will? Most treat Jesus as a personal advisor, not their absolute Lord. They ask for his opinion, but retain the final decision-making power. They desire his blessing for their own plans, not his plans for their lives. Denying yourself daily means choosing to forgive when you want to retaliate, choosing to serve when you want to be served, choosing to give when you would like to receive, choosing to obey when you want to rebel. Choosing humility when pride is desired is the daily death of the ego, and that's precisely why few choose this path. But now that you understand the 7 teachings, I need to ask you an essential question. Now you know the 7 specific principles Jesus clearly outlined. Love your enemies, not just those who do you good. Forgive 70 times 7. Without limits, without conditions. Be simple as a child. Recognize your complete dependence on God. Serve in secret. True faith needs no audience. Don't judge. First, remove the plank from your own eye. Give without expecting anything in return. Extreme and unconditional generosity. Deny yourself daily. Choose God's will over your own desires. The question you need to answer now is a tough one. How many of these 7 do you actually put into practice? Be brutally honest, not with others but with yourself. Do you truly love the people who hurt you? Or do you still harbor lists of resentments? Do you forgive without limits? Or do you place hidden conditions on your forgiveness? Are you truly humble, or do you merely mask pride with spirituality? Do you serve when no one is watching? Or does your faith only work in front of an audience? Do you judge with the same grace you would like to receive? Or do you specialize in highlighting the mistakes of others? Do you give without expecting anything in return? Or is all your generosity a disguised investment? Do you die to yourself every day? Or is Jesus merely an advisor for your personal projects? And this brings us to the final revelation. Remember the promise I made at the beginning that I would reveal which of these 7 teachings is the most challenging to the human ego. It's the 7th. Deny yourself every day. Why? Because all the other 6 depend on this one. Will you continue to admire Jesus or become true followers? Will you continue to pretend you don't know these 7 teachings, or will you start practicing them today? Because Jesus was very clear. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but only the one who does the will of my Father. Don't just know, don't just admire, do. If this video challenged you, share it with other Christians who also need to hear this truth. Leave a comment telling us which of these 7 teachings challenged you most. And remember, Jesus isn't interested in admirers who applaud from afar. He seeks disciples who obey closely. The final question is, which of the 2 will you choose?